Hello and welcome to another episode of Sacred Pause, the Self Healers Podcast, with your host, myself, Kelsey Kyle. I'm very excited to connect deeper and super interested in hearing more about our next guest story. She's a member of SAA, Sex Addicts Anonymous. She is sober for 7 months. Congrats. And she has such an incredible, healing, inspiring journey. I'm literally getting truth bumps that I really think we can all get a lot out of. So without further ado, thank you, Susan Lyons, for joining us today and taking a sacred pause with me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So to start, I would love to you can share whatever you feel called, just your journey that led you to who you are today. And we can, if like, also I want to definitely touch on like when you were like, oh shit, I might be addicted to sex. And then we can just flow from there. That would be a great place to start if that's cool with you.
Yeah. So
Cool.
you want me to tell you a little about like my background, my childhood and stuff?
Yeah, let's start with that. Sounds
Just a
good.
little. So I was raised Southern California, and I was raised in a New Age cult church. It was a very confining church. I call it a cult, even though my friends who are still in that church don't see it that way. But very controlling, very repressive, and don't drink, don't smoke, no sex, all that stuff, no rock and roll, and
No fun at all. No fun.
no red or black. You couldn't wear red or black. It was like all energy stuff. So I
Wow.
was raised in that, and then basically, let's see. I guess to start out with like where my sex interest came in, like around the age of 12, I started
Wow.
being interested in erotica and pornography. We had one of the first cable networks that existed on TV, is what it was called, and they played porn at midnight. They had two pornos, and so I literally would wake up. Well, I would go to bed like 9 o'clock or whatever, and have a little transistor radio. I shared a room with my sister, and I was 12, and I had a little transistor radio underneath my pillow, and it would keep me awake. And then I would hear my parents go to bed at like 10 or 11. And then I would wait up and listen to KHJ, which was an AM radio station back in the day. And I'd listen to pop music until they went to bed and it was midnight. And then I would get up out of my bed, go out to the living room and turn on the TV and sit like this close to the TV, no sound. And I would just watch what was happening. And I was just so infatuated with what was happening. And
Wow.
then I started babysitting at the same age. And the guy who I babysat for, the dad, I'm a snooper. And so I would go snoop, and I found all his collection of Penthouse Forum, which was erotica basically. And I would read it, and I would sit on the floor after I put the kid to bed, and I would call my girlfriends like, you have to listen to this story. And I would read them stories. I just was infatuated with sex, like anything having to do with sex, sexuality, bodies, naked bodies, how it physically worked, like everything. And so I taught every girlfriend of mine how to masturbate in the bathtub in high school. Like
You were that friend. You were that friend, Susan.
I knew a lot of stuff. And so I basically obsessed over that kind of stuff. And I couldn't get rid of my virginity fast enough. And I actually lost my virginity at 20, believe it or not.
Whoa.
And I know, kind of late, right? But yeah, I lost my virginity. Then I basically was with anything in pants for about a year and a half until I met my future husband, and we started dating. And we pretty much were physical from the get-go, like the second date, and it was basically every day for like 2.5 years. And then we got engaged, and we abstained because I became a Christian at 22. So he was a Christian, and he said, I'm not going to marry somebody unless they're a Christian. So I was like, well, I better become a Christian because I'm pretty sure I want to marry you. And so I basically wanted to get out of my parents' house. I wanted to move out. I wanted to have a life of my own. He was a very nice guy. He seemed like a good person. He was a good person. He is a good person.
Mm.
And so that was my goal. And so we dated, and then when we got engaged, we abstained from sex for a year. So we had been hot and heavy up until our engagement, and then our engagement happened, and we abstained. And what I used to say is, I learned to feel loved a different way. And now that I've done all my steps and my work in SAA, I now realize that was actually the only time in my entire life that I was probably whole, that I was not a sex addict, because I learned to feel love through other ways other than sex. And so, but I always said, oh my gosh, we abstained and I was doing it for God. I thought that He would bless our marriage and everything. And then I lost my sex drive after we got married. And then we had babies like a year and a half later. And, then the sex drive just really goes away. And so, so basically, I always said, like, I lost my sex drive, after we abstained. I don't know what happened. Well, now that I've done all my work and I reflect back on that, I realize it's because I had an emotional connection for the first time in my whole life with someone that it wasn't physical at the time. So I had that, and I learned it from listening to a first step in my program. She said the same thing, and something clicked, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened to me. I lost my sex drive. I thought, oh, sweet, I get to get married and have as much sex as I want. And then I got married, and I was like, wow, I don't really want sex, because it wasn't the integral part of our connection. We had that connection in the beginning. And so that was really mind blowing and crazy. So I was married for 25 years. Um, we got a divorce about 2 years ago. And it was basically because we had grown so far apart that our focus was on the kids. And once the buffer was gone from the marriage with the kids, we didn't have too much in common. And so I was like, I don't want this. And so we got a divorce. So basically, my kids were very upset that I was the destroyer of the family, and they didn't speak to me for about a year. And it was really hard. My ex-husband stayed home with the kids and raised them for 17 years, and I provided. So I was basically the dude in the relationship, and he was the chick. And so we switched roles basically in our marriage, and it worked great. I was not the homework sports person. I didn't want to do all that stuff. I liked going to work, and I have a great career. I'm a hairstylist for 36 years now, and I have a great clientele who basically I've grown up with most of my clientele. I've done a lot of people at least an average of 20 years. So um, yeah, and so we got a divorce, and the kids weren't speaking to me, and so I wasn't really feeling love from anyone. And ended up I dated somebody who I've known for a very long time, and that kind of fell apart. And then I dated another guy. Well, it's funny, I use the term dating very loosely. I didn't actually date this guy, but he was the most beautiful Persian man I've ever met in my life. And we had an amazing connection over music. And I loved that. But he was a workaholic, and he could only give me Sundays. So I was like, okay, not doing this. So my heart was broken. And my girlfriend came over one day, and she said, hey, let's get you out of this. Let's get you on online dating. Let's get your head out of the gutter or whatever, out of your dark space, and get into online dating. So just for fun, we set up a profile on Tinder. And That was hilarious. I mean, I've never laughed so hard in all my life. Like, I mean, you were getting like 250 likes every, bam, bam, bam. And I was like, oh my God, these people. And I didn't really understand how to navigate it. But so I did that for 14 months. Right around the time when I started online dating, I said goodbye to my therapist, who I had been with for 14 months. I said, hey, I'm going to take a break. When I crash and burn, I'll call you, but I'm going to take a break. And
Mm.
then I actually took a break from God. I said to him in the car, driving back from my church service, I said, I'm going to take a break from you for a while. I'll be back, but I'm going to take a break from you. And I always said, God knows my heart. God knows that I struggle with lust, and he knows that, but he still loves me. And that
Yes.
was my cavalier attitude about it. And so I took a break. Well, after 14 months and 41 men in 14 months, which I'm not saying like each one was a one night stand. I had probably half of those were regular players, people that I was with physically for 14 months. And so, and then, okay, so get to how I started this. So I had somebody I was living with. He was also a sex addict, and I thought I had met the holy grail of partners because he could keep up with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I ended up at the end of that, I broke up with him on election day last year in 2020. And then I was with three of my other guys that were regular players, like within the week. And then I thought, oh, I should go get my STD test. I haven't been tested in about 3 months. I go every 3 months because I was such an active person that I got tested regularly, blood and urine, covered all the bases,
All the things.
all of it. And I um, got tested and it came back that I had chlamydia. And
Mm.
which I guess if you're going to get an STD, it is probably the best one to get.
I've heard that.
If that's a thing. And so yeah, got it orally, by the way. So just putting that out there, that's possible.
Oh,
Um
interesting. Mm.
yeah. And so my rock bottom was that I had to tell 5 people that they had to go get tested,
Uh,
and that there's possibility that they could have it. And for me, the person who basically it for me, image was kind of everything. I always looked on the outside like I had all my shit together, and that I was basically like Martha Stewart. I could cook, I could garden, I grow orchids, I do great hair, I'm a business person, all this stuff. I have successful children, and I look really good on the outside. So for me to have to share that with people and say, hey, I had an STD test, I got tested, I have chlamydia, you should really go get screened. That for me was absolutely my rock bottom. I went into a
mm.
depression, like a very quick depression for about 4 days of just wallowing in that mindset of, you're such a piece of shit. You're so dirty. You're disgusting. Of course you have this. Of course you jeopardize people's health. Of course you did this because you're running this risky lifestyle, and serves you right. You deserve it. Like, what do you think was going to happen? And so I had that in my head. And one night, it was the fourth day, my daughter calls me from New York, where she went to university. And she's like, hi, Mom, how's it going? And I'm like, it's shit. Everything's shit. And she's like, what's going on? And I told her. And she goes, well, it's not that bad. Like, my friends get it sometimes and they just take 2 antibiotic pills and it's all done. And I'm like, yeah, it's not that. I don't care about chlamydia. It's not chlamydia. It's having to tell everybody, and the embarrassment, the humiliation, the feeling, knowing I wanted to be with these people again. These were my regular people. And so she goes, what are you doing right now? And I go, oh, I'm laying on the beanbag. I have one of those giant love sacks that I like to just lounge on.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, you're in the dark listening to music. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, Satan and his demons are flying around your house in the dark right now, telling you all these lies that you're not loved by God, that you're crap, that you're a piece of trash and everything. And she's like, get up, turn on the light, say a prayer, and read some scripture. And I
Oh,
was like,
yes.
so like, ugh. And I just got up. I go, okay. And I just got up. I turned on the light because I never had lights on. I basically survived in my house with about 20 battery operated candles that come on at dusk, stay on till about 3 a.m., and then turn off. So I would have men coming over and they'd be like, wow, your house is so dark. And they're like, it's kind of cool. And so I just lived that way. I just lived in the darkness.
Oh,
And
wow.
I did that. I got up, I turned on a light, and I had nothing, no idea of what to do scripturally. So I just put in God-sized hole, which is something from the program that my brother-in-law had talked to me about the night before. And I Googled it and I read it. And it's basically everyone has a God sized hole. It's not going to ever be filled by a person or an addiction. It's never going to be filled but by God, by your higher power, right?
Mm.
Whatever that might be. And so I read it. There was some scripture attached to it. I texted my therapist. I went in and um, ended up hooking up with the therapist. But the next day, one of my
Wait,
clients,
what?
no, not hooking up. Oh, I'm sorry. That's
Okay.
no, like connecting.
I was like, damn, Susan.
That's right. That's no, it's a woman. No, no. I always forget about that term.
No worries. We
I
got it
use
covered
that.
now.
That's so funny. So I texted her, got on her books. The next day, a client came in. She's this 80-year-old woman who's a counselor, very open minded and non judgmental. I've done her hair for years. And I told her where I was. And she said, I think you might be a sex addict. I think you should go into SAA. And I said, oh, I'm a sex addict. I could have told you that like 9 months ago. I'm definitely a sex addict. I mean, just the quantity,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it. Hello. I mean, my thing I used to say to people, I don't do feelings and I don't do sleepovers because there's an intimacy in that. And
Yeah.
I don't do that. I would never allow someone to sleep in my sheets with me because that's an intimate place. And I wouldn't allow that because I was just in it for fun.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, she talked to me. I committed to a 90 and 90, doing 90 meetings in 90 days in
Nice.
SAA. I went to my first meeting on that night and I did a 90 and 90 and I was held accountable to her. Every day I would text her with the number as it was accumulating. And by I think it was about 65 days in, I was like, you know what? There is no man who is going to make me give up my 65 days. Because when you get to the higher numbers, it's like, oh, am I going to throw that away and take a white chip, which is 24 hours? Or am I going to give up all of that to keep this number getting higher? And I'm at 211 days today. So, of sexual sobriety. So, no acting out. I have my inner circle behaviors, which is online dating, sharing nude photos, sexting, arousing men without concern, and meaningless sex. So that's my inner circle behaviors, which I no longer do. And as long as I stay out of that inner circle, I will not lose my sobriety. So,
Nice.
and through all of that, through being obsessed with sex at the age of 12, going through a marriage, going through my sex addiction, coming out of it, I realized about 3 months in, right around the 98 days, that God has to have a bigger purpose for me. It's not just to heal me of my sex addiction and then just me find another dude to like have healthy sexuality with and have a healthy relationship with. I must have a bigger purpose. And I was thinking about it for a couple days and it occurred to me driving on the freeway that my purpose is to help people know, see, and feel their worth through God's grace
Hmm.
because God had been very gracious with me. I mean, I only got chlamydia, I thought all the way along I would end up with herpes 2, a blood virus of some sort, based on the amount of sex that I was having with various people, not always being safe. And I just thought he just gave me a little flick on the side of the head instead of a baseball bat of my whole life is upturned by getting a blood virus. So God gave me grace. He's helped me to see, and I've healed things with my children. I didn't realize in my sex addiction that I hadn't spoken to my son in 4 months. And when
Mm.
I got mad at him for him moving and not telling me, I said, why is I'm hurt that I find out that you've moved through Amazon Prime notifications. And he's like, oh, so you want to be my mom now? And I was like, oh. And I was 15 days in the program at that point.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, let's talk. So I drove down to where he lives and we talked in the car and we got things hashed out. And basically, he said, Mom, I was never sure what I was going to come across. It's either a woman who resembles my mom and acts like my mom, or this party girl who has a million boyfriends and teaches me strip moves on the pole. And I was like, okay, I own that. Yeah, that's kind of who I was because I had no one to answer to. Nobody was living at my house. My daughter was off at university. My son had moved out. I had no one to answer to. So I was just living and doing what I wanted,
Yeah.
and at the cost of my children. And
Mm.
so so that's kind of where I am. So I've been working the program now. I lead my Monday meetings. I have a women's group and a mixed group that I'm involved in, online. Everything's Zoom, thank God, because it would be terrible to be an SAA and go to an in-person meeting. I just think for me, I don't think I could do that because usually the majority of members, people in SAA are men, for the most part. There's a handful of women. And um, so going to an in-person meeting when you're a sex addict and you're sitting in a room of your addiction on the other side of the room, probably not safe. Like it wouldn't be safe for me.
Mm-hmm.
So Zoom meetings are where it's at for me. And so I have two sponsees. I am a sponsor for two women and I enjoy helping. Step 12 says be of service to others. And that's what I'm doing. And so,
Mm.
and carrying the message of know your worth. Because when I was in my darkest days, those 4 days, I was literally street gravel. My worth level was street gravel. I refer to it as I'm street gravel. I am worthless. And I started saying, I wrote, I am worthy on post it notes and I put it all over my house. And my friend who said to do that, she said, I want you to say it out loud every time you see it. It's by my toothbrush, it's by my coffee maker, it's in my bathroom, it's by my bed. And I started by just saying, I am worthy. I am worthy. Every time I
Mm.
look at it, I am worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly but surely, after about a month, I started feeling some worth, some worth. God gave me a feeling one day in the morning where I was instantly at 100% worth. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this what it feels like? I was, oh my gosh, mind blown. Like I've never felt that in my entire life.
Wait, so what else got you to that point other than saying, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy?
Going to meetings every day and seeing that other people share the exact same struggles, the exact
Mm.
same feelings, the
Yep.
same mindset. And we all bleed the same addiction in those groups. So for someone to say their deepest, darkest, shameful feelings of themselves and their actions, to say that in a group where you are completely safe is unbelievable. I mean, these people know some of the most shameful things I have done in my life that I used to carry it as a secret and isolate and hold on to. And what happens when shame is held and not shared, it festers, it grows, it overtakes you. So in these meetings, when you're able to share, every time you share your shame with someone who's safe, usually they speak truth into you, not necessarily in meetings because we can't crosstalk until fellowship, but I definitely have found that when I share my shame, like with clients that I've known for years, and they say, "Oh, Susan, I was worried for you. Oh, I hear your stories, and oh, it was dreadful, you know?"
Mm.
And then when I came out of it and I am now here in a healthy frame of mind, they were like, "Oh, sometimes I'd have to go home and shower after I'd listened to your stories. Sometimes I was so appalled by the things that you'd show me on your phone that I couldn't even believe what you were doing. Sometimes when you would tell me, you know, the things that you would do and be doing with men on a regular basis, that they would just be horrified. And when I tell them my shame and I tell them and finally level with them, then they go, "But you're such a loving person and you have such a good heart and you help so many people and you're so creative and you're so this and that." And so what happens is it's like an exchange. When you share your shame with someone who you trust and knows loves you, they will speak truth into you. So you let it out and they fill you back up and replace that shame with truth, and that pokes holes in your shame and it doesn't have a hold on me. That's why I'm free to talk about this, even though my children might listen to this, my pastors might listen to this, you know, so many people, my family might listen to this, you know, like my sister and my dad. Well, probably not my dad, but it's a lot of technology for him. But, but like, these things are my shame, the things that I used to hold on to. But now, because I've spoken about it for now 211 days and shared openly about it, I'm fine. That's what's great about the meetings. Is you go there and you know people are being vulnerable to their deepest core, sharing their insecurities, sharing their shame with people who understand and probably share a lot of the same shameful behaviors and thoughts. So it's just a safe place.
Have you always been this open to sharing?
I yeah, I don't have much filter.
It's
um
a good skill. It is.
it's well, I don't know. I mean,
I think so.
a lot of my friends say they love me because they always know where they stand with me because I'm not fake. Like I can't fake. My face would give me away every step of the way, you know?
Well, yes, Susan, though. But Susan, sharing, as you know, is so powerful, so magical. And so many people, especially if they have shame around whatever story they're holding on to or whatever happened in the past,
Yeah.
it sounds like people would rather die than share that shame. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give to these people? Most people are so scared to share, but you are just born with it. What would you tell these people who weren't?
Well, so I was always open with a lot of things back before I started SAA. But now, after doing readings about shame and vulnerability, being vulnerable is the single most bravest thing a person can ever do.
Mm,
Being vulnerable, turning it over, getting out of your head, because the lies that we tell ourselves are the most damaging things. No other human would say the things that we say to ourselves, if you think about it.
if they did, most of us hopefully would be like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
That's not happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And put up a
Yeah.
wall or not listen to those people or be in contact with those people,
Yep. Whatever it is. Yep.
you'd shut them out, right?
Yeah.
But yet we have this recording that goes over and over and over, and we listen to it. It's a lot of our past. Um, and sometimes you just got to change the channel, like,
Mm,
and realize that you're doing it to yourself. You'll be
mm-hmm.
driving along in the car, you're listening to these things, you're getting down on yourself, and you're like, "Hey, that's enough. I'm turning off, I'm pushing pause. I'm not gonna listen to this recording anymore."
Mm,
And just stop it. If you can identify it, I give it a name. I actually give it my mother's name. So I go, okay, Nancy, that's enough. Because a lot of the things that have haunted me in my head, those negative recordings that go on and on in my head, a lot of them stem from my mother. You know,
Mm.
I was never worthy. I was never good enough. I could always improve in some way. You know, even if I did my best and I was successful in whatever I was doing, she would say, well, you know, if you did it like this, it'd be better. You know, oh, if you did it
Yeah.
like this, you probably would have, you know, or, you know, the body shaming. You know, I have felt fat my entire life. No matter what size I am, I always look at myself as fat. And it's so funny because people say you're not fat. Like even my children are like, "Mom, you're not fat." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just a big sturdy Russian girl, you know? Like my people are from Russia. I'm sturdy, you know?" So, it's like a lot of negative talk stems from my mother. And I know people are like, "Well, you can't blame your parents for everything." But it's those recordings that you've listened to and what you anticipate them saying to you. My mom died 2 years ago,
Mm.
and luckily, in God's grace, He gave me closure with her in the last week of her life. But before that, we were not close. I didn't see her on a regular basis at all. So, but when somebody's on morphine, truth comes out of them. And she was very loving to me when she was on morphine,
Oh, of course
passing
she was.
away. She
Yeah.
was so lovely. And it was interesting, this, what I considered this evil woman, my most worst antagonist on this planet, my mother, was laying there in a hospital bed. And when I saw her, she was just this scared old woman. And I went up to her and I held her hand and I just said, "Mom, I love you." And when I did that, she looked at me. She opened up her eyes and she looked at me and she says, "I love you too." And I mean, I literally cannot remember a time when my mother said, "I love you" to me in my
Mm.
life. And for her to say this to me, laying there in the hospital, it was like the floodgates opened. I looked at my daughter and I'm like, "I need a tissue." And I was holding her
Mm.
hand and I took pictures of us holding hands. And I have them on my phone because that was the most beautiful thing, was holding her hand in her dying days. And anyway, so I got
Wow,
healing
beautiful.
and
It's beautiful.
God gave me the grace. He knew that I needed closure in that relationship. So I always used to think, God, I wish she was just dead and I wouldn't have to deal with her anymore. And she'd be gone. That one antagonist, you know, who nags me in my head all the time, she'd be just gone off the planet. And God knew better. God knew I needed closure. And so I feel like that little hole was filled in those 7 days that she was passing away. And I got to say all the things I wanted to say to her. And, you know, she was hopped up on morphine. So she was very sweet, you
Mm.
know? So it was hard. That was a hard reckoning time for me, you know? But it was good. And so, anyway.
When did you get the awareness that she was the one putting those um, untrue, harsh thoughts in your mind about yourself?
My therapist said, you know,
Yeah.
what is it that you're listening to? And I'm like, honestly, it's my mom's voice. It's my mom. You're going to wear those pants to work. Those make your butt look really big. You know, you're, or like giving me a hug and feeling the rolls underneath my bra and going, "What's this, Susan?" You
Mm.
know, like just hurtful things, throwing me under the bus in front of clients at my salon, you know, to tell these crazy secrets about me to my clients. And I'm like,
Mm.
how dare you, you know?
Yeah.
And so I just started cutting her completely out of my life. I wouldn't go see her, I wouldn't talk to her. And I just, for self protection, she was just a toxic person while she was here on the planet. And she would make me cry basically every single time I would be with her. So I said, that's enough. I'm not doing that anymore. So I just protected myself. You know, my dad didn't understand it. he's still alive to this day and thinks my mom was a wonderful person. And I'm like, okay, that's your reality and that's not my reality, but it's okay. Everybody has their own brain and they're free to think whatever they want to think,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but you
It's
got
the
to
harsh
step
truth.
away. It
Yeah.
is. It is.
Did d- was the moment she spoke truth to you, which was it sounds like a week before she died,
Mhm.
was that the moment you forgave her?
No. No, it was a year and a half later. It was actually Christmas time. I never shed a tear when she passed away. I was
Oh,
crying. I
interesting.
was crying during her passing away when I was holding her hand and she was laying there non-responsive at times, and I was sharing with her. But um, no, she passed away, and I never shed a tear. And then it wasn't until this Christmas, after I had been in SAA for about 2 months, and I was sitting in front of my Christmas tree one night, and I realized it hit me that my mom did actually love us because she left us her life insurance policy, me and my sister. And I was like, oh my gosh, she did really actually love us. She didn't leave that for my dad, she left it for us. And when I realized that, oh my gosh, I started sobbing and I missed her. But it was interesting because I didn't miss the white haired woman who she had become. In my heart, when I pictured the woman that I was missing, is that woman from like around my toddler years. She had
Mm.
long, straight, blondish hair back in like 1970. And it was that woman that I was picturing that I missed, which I thought was really interesting. My therapist, we've worked through this, that
That is
I was
interesting.
in love with this woman who I felt love from back when I was really small. But as I hit teenagerhood and above, we became adversaries. I felt there was a jealousy that she had toward me. She was also a hairstylist and worked in the Beverly Hills Hotel doing celebrities of all kinds. And she had a good, successful career. But in 1967, she gave birth to me and gave up her career to be a stay at home mom. Whereas when I became a mother, I gave up the raising of my children to my husband, and I went out and built my
Mm.
career, and I owned two salons, and I have a very successful client base and everything. And so there was like this kind of jealousy. I married for love, she married for stability. Um, and I basically have always determined what my future is, and she either didn't feel she could do it or she chose not to for
Mm-hmm.
security. So, you know, I so anyway, I don't know what what was your
Yeah.
question?
Oh, I don't even know. We're flowing.
I know. Okay.
So, so yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started recording about who your greatest teacher would be. So I want to hear your answer for that. But I want to invite you that it sounds like your mom could also be one of your greatest teachers. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh. Oh, wow.
That's a twist.
Dang. My mom could be a teacher. Well, she was definitely a teacher of a very critical eye. And
Mm.
my mother taught me a lot of negative attributes, a lot of my character defects, which I have come to realize through working the steps, that a lot of my character defects are what my mother's character defects were.
Okay.
Very critical, no filter, which could be hurtful in many ways. I mean, you see it as like a good thing, but not having a filter can be very cruel. She did not have a filter, and things she would say to people were just so hurtful and derogatory. Um, so yeah, she taught me a lot of bad things, but I would say my greatest teacher is
There
Jesus,
you go.
and living a life like Jesus would want me to. Um, I don't want to exclude anyone, but I see Jesus as an amazing teacher who taught nothing but love. love for everyone, because his whole underlying premise of his whole teaching background was love one another, period. Period. Not if they think like you, if they look like you, if they believe what you believe.
Yeah.
No, love everyone, period. He doesn't have to like put confining judgmental things on. That's a personal human thing. He
Yeah, there's
didn't
no rules on love.
know.
Yeah.
Just like you can't choose who you love.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, I love that.
It is. So I would say that is my biggest goal, is to live life loving everyone. I really don't judge because, like I told you earlier, I am not going to be standing in front of God after this life is over. I'm not standing with you. I'm standing alone.
Mm-hmm.
So me judging you, that's not my job. Last time I last time I checked, Jesus was not looking for interns, and neither was God. So for us to take on that burden of like we feel righteous, so righteous that we can judge people, I think that's wrong. I think that's completely humanist, you know?
Mm.
You're going to so somebody's going to judge somebody with this little piddly mind that has been influenced by worldly things? No. We are in no position to be judging anybody.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel good to judge either. It doesn't feel good. It feels terrible. When I find myself judging others, it feels like hell. So I immediately try to be aware of it and let it go. And when I find that when I'm judging others, all I have to do is reflect it back. And that's what I'm judging them on is something I judge myself on. So it
Right.
always comes back to us. That's why I love what you're saying about when I'm at the gates of God, when I pass or whatever it is. I'm not with you. Like, I'm not going to judge you. It's me. We walk this path alone. It's so true. And that's why I think self love is so important. There's all this stuff about self love, but self love to me is just like self trust. But people are just, some people think that self-love is selfish, but really it's selfless, because when you really truly love and trust yourself and listen to yourself, that's when you can show up the best and help the most people, and you're just giving and like lead by example. But the only way you're going to do that is if you focus on yourself and stop focusing on all the external stuff, focus on the internal world. That's where the magic is, and then it'll just happen automatically, anything else you want to portray. So I
Right.
love all what you're saying. It's really beautiful.
I think humility is really a good word for people to live by. Like to have
Mm.
humility, and to have humility, you become selfless, meaning you look at yourself less than you look at other people. And I've learned in SAA that serving others keeps me sober. So me being a sponsee, me being a leader, me being there for ready for outreach calls and stuff like that to help someone who's struggling at the time. When I talk to another woman on the phone about what a terrible day she's having and she's wanting to act out and stuff like that, and we talk, I always try to instill worthiness in that person. Like, you are worthy of a better life. Your addict wants you dead. Your addict doesn't care if you live or die. It wants what it wants. And if you continue to listen to the addict who's telling you, "Oh, act out. What's the big deal? You know it feels good. You know it's going to bring you happiness. You know it's going to be all that you've ever wanted." Well, that's such a lie, because when we act out in our addiction, it just brings us down further. It's like it pushes pause from real life happening. You escape, you numb, you go into the bubble, is what we call it in SAA. You go into the bubble of your addiction. You're acting out in your addiction in the bubble, not seeing what's happening in the life and in your real world, because you're in the bubble, getting your needs met, you're numbing out, you're getting high off of whatever your addictive thing is.
Which
And
can be literally anything.
it could be anything.
Anything.
It could be video games. It could be overeating. It could be anything: sex,
Literally
drugs,
anything. Yep.
alcohol,
Yep. Sugar, whatever the
anything.
freak. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a big
So,
one.
exactly. I know. I know. So when you numb out like that, you are just focusing on yourself, not caring what happens out in the world, and you're hurting other people. You're kind of probably hurting yourself. And it's just keeping you in that muck, like in the
Mm-hmm.
swirling muck of your addiction. And so when I talk to people on the phone, like they go, "Oh my gosh, it helped me so much that you were here to talk to and everything." And I'm like, it helps me because when I say that to you, I'm really saying it to myself too,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
But what are you doing to fill your cup up to be so supportive and empowering others to be the same?
Well, I do a meditation every morning and it's 5 or 6 minutes. And um, it's a godly meditation and
Mm.
it helps me to focus on my God, my higher power, and that He's got this, to trust Him, to walk hand in hand with whatever He puts in my path, and that He's got me. And when I get reminded of that every single morning, it just starts off my day in a good place. Like, okay, carry on with your day in this world of flawed people who deserve grace because you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way God speaks to me. He gives me grace. So who am I to hold the grace to myself? I should spread the grace to others and give people grace. You know, like if somebody cuts me off, wow, they are really in a rush. I hope that their wife isn't dying or something, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what I think of. Like, you don't know, you've never walked a day in anybody else's shoes. So you can't judge what they're going through. And I try to give grace to people as they come into my life, you know, in their flawed way, just as I am flawed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a struggle every day to stay focused on just doing your best, giving grace, giving love, giving the things that God gives to us so freely.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care what your higher power is. It could be the doorknob, you know? It could be your big toenail. I don't know. It could be it could be your chapstick, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It could be anything, whatever. In SAA, if people don't have a higher power, if they can't relate with the notion of a higher power, they say, think of the group conscience as the higher power, the betterment of the people in this. If you don't answer to a higher power, answer to the group consciousness, which is the
Mm.
betterment of all of us in the program.
I love their focus on higher power. That's so spiritual. I freaking love it. I was shocked when we talked prior to this, and you were saying how they really preach higher powers and follow the higher power. It's so beautiful because it's just showing like we need to get out of our own way. The plan
Yeah.
is already done. Let's just enjoy the ride. Of course, there are hard times, but there's always a higher being, a higher power leading us. Like we don't always need to get in the way, especially with our minds. We need to kind of just let it kind of flow, let go. My motto at one of a million is there's nothing more important than letting go. And to me, that means just unattaching to just I'm not attached to anything. And that to me is me out of the way and just let flow whatever needs to flow. Because that's when I'm the most me. That's when I'm the most helpful. That's when I'm the most loving. So it's really
Yeah.
great.
It's all
SAA
about
is
surrender.
amazing.
It's step two is
Surrender.
surrender.
Yes.
Surrender and get out of the insanity. Admit that you are in the insanity. Be restored to sanity
Yes.
through your higher power. So surrender your addiction, surrender yourself. And that's step one and two. That's the
Mm-hmm.
first two things you talk about.
And only then, when you surrender, will you get clarity on all the shit you need to heal. And then you heal, and then it
Exactly.
comes in, and then you heal. It's like, it's a process, obviously. But the only way to
Yeah.
get there, the first step is to surrender. I love that you brought that word up.
Hmm.
Like that's the trick. It's like it's not really a trick. It's like all there is. If you're not doing that, you're kind of just living in a world of distraction,
Yeah.
which is what I used to do my whole life up till
Yeah.
recently.
And carrying the burden, you
Oh,
know?
so heavy, so
It's so
heavy.
heavy. When you've got a million secrets and shameful ideas in your head, if you carry them with you, that's what defines you. It's when you surrender it, just turn it over and basically just say, yes, this is who I am. These are my character defects. Help me to be better, and surrender
Mm.
it.
Mm.
And really like focus back on yourself so that you can kind of see yourself through the vision of what God or your higher power is seeing you. God and your higher power is something that is loving and encouraging. And we are our worst critic, right? I mean, if you surrender all of that crap that you're carrying around, that you keep listening to all your crap, then you're going to stay wallowing in it, you know? And the
Yep.
moment that I just gave it over, I mean, I listen to my meditation, it gets me in tune with God. And I'm
AKA
like,
yourself, AKA in tune with yourself, right? Would you say?
sure. And seeing my relationship and my trust with Him. Yeah.
Yep.
And seeing me through His eyes, you know? And when I see me through how He sees me, it's like, oh, I am worthy. I'm 100% worthy. So,
Mm.
so I've
So
come to that point now through
yeah, I
helping
could tell.
people. You know, when you help people, it builds your worth. You know, you've helped so many people, you've inspired people, you talk to people, you're open with people. It gives them a bravery to share,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when they
Mm-hmm.
see you could be an example and share your innermost thoughts that are kind of crappy. And then somebody else feels comfortable to share with you because it's safe.
Yep. And it never fails every time. When I'm in a weird, funky mood, whatever it is, the second I have a conversation with someone, it literally disappears because I'm not in my mind making up some crazy story of why I'm irritated or whatever. And then
Right.
after I talk to this beautiful human being at the grocery store, that's like, it always happens at the grocery store. I don't know. I'm like, whoa, I feel amazing. Thank you, random woman. Every
Right.
time. And that's just me getting out of my way. There's so many ways to do it. But if you
Mhm.
do it by help, I'm not saying I help the lady at the grocery store, but that's like one example. But if you actually help someone too, it's another way of getting out of your
Yeah.
own way, surrendering, let go, let God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Mm.
like that.
So how does surrendering look to you?
Surrendering. Just not letting my will get in the way. You know, when
Yeah.
random things happen and it didn't go as planned, I go, well, God's obviously got a better plan for me. You know,
Yes.
obviously, I mean, for me, my God sees the whole big picture. He's got a plan, he's got a map, all that. You know, when things happen and it's kind of like serendipitous, where
Mm-hmm.
something happens, you're like, oh, look, because months ago I did this, now this is what's worked out, right?
Those are the best. I love that.
Right. And you're like, wow, if I had made a different choice and not done this back then, this would have never played out and it
Yep.
wouldn't have worked out as magically as it did. You know,
Yep.
I have to say, like, that's not just human doing. There's a bigger force at work, you know?
Oh my God, yeah. Whatever you need, the universe will provide. Universe, God, higher power, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's so beautiful. And if you just have the awareness to kind of look back and just take a pause, a sacred pause and reflect, there's always magic that has happened. You just need to take a second and just look at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For the
We
most part,
just,
I'm sure there's some times where that doesn't happen, but you know.
yeah. I feel like if you wake up every day and you go about life like whatever's going to happen today is going to happen, like worrying about things, being anxious
Oh
about things,
God.
you're basically putting yourself through it twice.
Yep.
You're putting yourself through it the first time that you're worrying about it. And then if it does happen, you have to go through it again. Why do we do that? Why do we put ourselves through worry and anxiety and then it might not ever happen?
Mm-hmm.
And you've already dealt with a whole bunch of crap before it even happened. And then it never even happened. It all worked out. Right. And you're like,
Well,
wow, I just made myself suffer.
yeah, I made myself sick worrying about this. I think I used to do that all the time. I still do periodically, but I get myself out of it. Because I was so scared to just fully be present. Because if I'm relaxing, oh, all hell's gonna break loose if I'm relaxing. I need to be controlling this, controlling that, controlling that. But really, it's the opposite. It's the opposite.
It
and you
is.
enjoy life more. So it's a win-win on the side of presence. And then on the side of presence, that's when love is just all around. Others
Because
can
you're
feel it.
letting the
You can feel it.
universe take over.
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, wow, we're so full of ourselves that we think we can control all this stuff and figure it all out. We got this.
And it's all in the mind. It's
It
all the mind.
is.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. Yep.
Oh boy. Oh wow. Time is already ticking. Wow, Susan. That
Oh,
was great. Okay.
time's flying.
Okay, I have a couple of my final questions.
Okay.
I should probably get to it since time's, just flying. So this part of the show, I like to open it up to my guests a little bit more. So if you feel called to share anything at all or ask me a question, now would be a cool time to do it.
Okay. Okay, I have a question. So,
Yeah.
where do you see yourself in 10 years? Like, is this really what you're...
That was a question for you on the list, Susan.
So, is this like what you're drawn to do? Is this your calling, is to open up minds through podcasts?
Oh, I like that. I mean, yes. I am learning. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know anything at all. It's very ironic. And then the more I make a plan, the more I realize that plans don't mean shit. So I'm learning that as long as I continue to connect to myself, to my heart, and listen, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I know it's going to be good. And I know it's going to be good for me and anyone I touch. So right now for me is the podcast. And I have never, ever gone all in on anything. I've gone in enough where it kind of looks like I've gone all in, retrospect. But I haven't. And this is the first time I am. And I'm learning that if you just go all in on something, it could be literally anything. You'll find yourself going all in on all your areas in your relationships, health, literally anything, passion projects. If something you've been wanting to try, you're like, life is short, I'm going to try that. Because, if you imagine a boat, if you only focus on the front of the boat, the fucking boat will sink. You need to be balanced and focus on all the areas. Right. And it gets confusing when you're like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but I want to do that. And you're like making lists and stuff. But if you just connect and go all in on what I'm big with spirits. You say God, I say spirits. Okay. So if you just follow your spirit, it will lead you into the most beautiful space. It's not always fun. It's not always easy, but it's magic. And I don't think I'm ever going to go back to not being all in. And if I do, hopefully I have the awareness to snap out of it.
Well, it inspires growth, right? Mm-hmm. When you go all in and take a risk. Like I used to love to roller skate back in my youth. And I decided about 2 years ago to join the roller derby team. So I joined roller derby because I'm a big girl and I'm like, I think I'd be really good at roller derby. I'm strong. I'm a good skater. And so I joined the roller derby team. And it was the most fun. And I was all in until I got past fresh meat. Fresh meat is the first level. So when you enter roller derby, you have to be trained, right? You have to know how to fall, know how to avoid, know how to skate backwards, all these skills that they teach you. And it's called fresh meat. And once I passed fresh meat, which took me about a month and a half, and I could skate all the rotations of the rink, in a certain period of time, I moved on to level 2, right? Well, level 2 is kind of lame. Like really? I realized I don't really like roller derby because I'm a big girl. I'm a blocker. I'm not the jammer who goes in and out of the whole thing and scores. I'm the blocker. So I'm basically like in a trio of women blocking other women, I'm like, that just doesn't sound fun to me. I want to skate. I want to skate. I want to fall. I want to be
free to do whatever the frick I want.
Exactly.
But that's so go ahead. Sorry, go.
I tried it. It was awesome. It was fun to say I'm on a roller derby team.
That is so cool. All your clients would be like, Susan, you're cooler than I even thought.
See, that's a lot to live up to, though. I don't want to be that cool.
Wait, but Susan, that brings up another beautiful point. A hidden gem with going all in is you go all in on something and immediately you're going to realize if that thing's for you or not. So then you can just, oh, I went all in. Not for me. Next. It's a beautiful
Right.
thing. Go all in, and that's the more clarity you'll get. It really kind of solves all the problems.
Yeah. It was awesome. I had a great time with the women. I loved the friendships and the fun, and
And
it was
all that.
awesome. And I loved it. But I just realized, man, I got 54-year-old knees that have been doing 80s dancing for a lot of years, and they're jacked. So
yeah, and you made the decision. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. Been there, done that.
I'll keep my knees, secure.
Exactly. But it was fun. And the fact that I could say I did it, I'm happy about that.
Yeah, you had that experience.
I don't want to get to the end of my life and have any regrets of any kind that I didn't try something. So I will try everything once. I said that through my whole sex addiction too. I will try anything once.
I'm sure people love to hear that.
Oh, they totally did. They totally did. And yeah, it got me into a lot of predicaments that I didn't really realize was a thing.
Yeah.
So
that's there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. What? I lost my train of thought when we talked about that last topic. Oh yeah. So this is the time where if viewers just love you and they want to connect deeper with you, how could they find you? Or they can get your hair done by them if you're not too busy. It sounds like you're busy.
I have plenty of people.
Okay. Oh, you're the boss. That's right.
I have a lot of clients. I don't want to work that hard anymore. So.
Okay, got it.
I was unclear there. 2 weeks
then I got it.
So.
Okay, what's your Instagram handle?
Okay, Instagram, the Susan Lyons, THE, Susan Lyons.
Perfect. I'll put that in the show notes for easy copy paste action.
Okay. Just no trolls or haters. That's all I ask.
Oh no! Never that. Please don't do that.
You will be instantly blocked and deleted.
Sounds good. That's why block is there. It's a beautiful thing. I love pushing block
Absolutely.
at this point. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. I call it, like, in my sex addiction, when I was done with someone and I was like, yeah, not doing that again. I would wish them to the cornfield is what I would say.
What the heck?
It comes from the Twilight Zone. It was this little kid who had the ability to wish people to the cornfield who had bad thoughts.
Oh.
So, and it's like black and white, this little kid's like 6 years old and he's like, I know what you're thinking. I'm going to wish you to the cornfield. And then the wife would be like, no, my darling husband. And he'd disappear to the cornfield and become a scarecrow. So,
oh my gosh.
So through my sex addiction, I'm like, yeah, I'm wishing you to the cornfield, and I block and delete them. So
that
I never
is hilarious.
Hear from them again.
Oh my gosh. But I find sometimes that I block people when they call me and then they can still call me.
What is that about?
I don't know. I was really pissed.
I always say, this is Satan's portal right here.
There's always ways in. There's always ways in.
I have blocked and blocked and blocked. And I have one person who has made it in. He can still leave me text messages. I only see them when I power down my phone or update.
What?
Yeah. And then his messages will come in. And I only see it with a phone number. It's not his name anymore because I've blocked and deleted him. But I'm like, what the hell? And then he'll leave a message and I'll get a text or a voice message. I'm like, I blocked this person. And then he got through to me on WhatsApp. And I was like, holy cow, dude, you were a one night stand. Yes, I get it. I was good. But holy cow, get off.
Oh gosh, he's resilient. He just bounces back no matter what.
Oh my God. Dude.
Oh gosh.
It's a no.
Yeah, so none of that on your Instagram. We got that. We called it. We'll be good. We stated that. We'll be good. And then keep losing my train of thought. Okay, my last and final question.
Okay.
Susan, what does a sacred pause mean to you?
Getting in touch with God, getting centered, getting quiet in my brain, turning off everything. I used to love to go get away to Las Vegas, and I would just sit in my room and look at the white ceiling because there's nothing to look at on a ceiling. It's just white. And just get into that blank space. And that's when your creative brain takes over. And you're your own self, and you're in your own mind. And because I have a relationship with God, he's in there with me, and he's showing me the beautiful things about myself. And that's a sacred pause for me, is just turning everything off, visualizing white, clear, nothing, no trees, no people, no cars, no nothing, white, and just be
Beautiful.
in a white room of peace and be in my own head. And for the first time in my whole life, I'm at a place where I enjoy my own company.
Mm.
You know,
Isn't that the best?
I always used to want to surround myself with people and
Yeah.
to take the focus off of me. But now I am like, I actually really like my company. I don't need to be with anyone. In fact, I think being with someone is going to be a distraction to me and my work that I need. I'm not brewed. I'm not fully brewed yet. I'm not ready to go out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
you know? So, sacred pause is
Beautiful.
just being alone in my own mind with God and being open to growth. And that's my best answer, I guess.
Beautiful. I love that answer. I love it.
Thanks.
Well, that's a beautiful place to end. Thank you, Susan. Thank you so
You're
much. And
welcome.
thank you, all our listeners, all our self healers. Thank you for connecting with Susan and I today. We are here to remind you that you have everything inside of you to feel better, to be your best self, and to create the life you deserve. We love you so much, and we will see you next week.